Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we got ourselves a mini camp wrap-up with Zack Rosenblatt. We got Zack Rosenblatt. He's on for 30 minutes. We're going to talk a little bit at the top. And we got Giant stories at the end. And at the end, we have to talk about something very serious. I very well may be at the Nathan's Hot Dog Contest and in the Lemonade Chugging Contest that will be on national TV.
Huge.
And representing Talking Giants. Justin,
Huge.
how are you?
Oh my gosh, there's just so much to get to. So much to get to. I cannot wait to get to the end of the show to talk about that. Hi, Bobby Skinner. We wrapped up mini camp. We wrapped it up, so the next couple weeks, it's going to be slow. Take your breath, go to the beach, have some margaritas, and then get ready for football.
6 weeks. And that's a letter to the players. 6 weeks, don't get arrested. You got 6 weeks to have fun, but don't get arrested. These are the most crucial 6 weeks of the year. Don't get arrested.
I mean, you can get arrested, just nothing serious. I mean, if we could talk about it, analyze it. I'm for it.
Yeah, just don't get arrested. But
don't do anything bad.
We have our wrap up, our mini camp wrap up. And I want to talk about some things at the top. But first, this episode was brought to you by one special person. His name is Bob Lees. Justin, who is Bob? Quickly.
Well, Blair Stewart, who's also a Patreon member. If you go to patreon.com/talkofgiants month plus some other tiers, you can join a community where you get to hang out with us while we record the shows live. And Blair Stewart in the chat said, I once laid out on a skateboard naked and went down a bowling lane. It was a strike. So you get to share your naked bowling stories on Patreon. Patreon.com/talk of Giants. Thank you to our Patreon members. Naked skateboard parties.
All right, Justin, let's get in this mini camp wrap up. First, Brian Daboll canceled the last day of practice. They did a barbecue, so cool. You know, the laid back Brian Daboll reputation is living on. It's definitely a lot less strict, and we talked about that a lot with Zack Rosenblatt. But I don't know if this is good or bad. Not the barbecue thing, like that's something a lot of guys do. But it's going to be interesting to see how we view training camps for Brian Daboll next year, because obviously this is year one, so everything's butterflies and flowers. But it's going to be interesting to see because, they're not really disciplining guys for mistakes and, you don't have to do run laps or kill them for fights. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But right now it's fun.
Yeah. And it kind of sucks that I don't have a large sample size of seeing Joe Judge practices and what those look like. The only Joe Judge practices that I saw were in New England, and those were joint practices to begin with. So I do hope, just in general, I hope the Brian Daboll training camp practices are somewhat tough. And just because of how lax the NFLPA rules are now of the amount of times you could put on pads per week, I don't know if you can have back-to-back dates, how many back-to-back days. I mean, everything is just so laxed compared to 10, 20 years ago that I hope training camps should be tough. Like, you should walk away from viewing an NFL practice saying, wow, those guys worked hard, especially when they have full pads on. And during the Shermer and McAdoo years, I was not walking away from those fully padded practice saying, wow, those guys really worked hard. So I hope that is a thing this camp where they actually work hard. Because it was a thing during Judge.
The red jerseys have been the talk of training camp right now, is guys having to deal with injuries. Daboll finally kind of cracked to the press a little bit and said, he's like, hey, some guys that are in red jerseys, if this was training camp, they wouldn't be. So it's precautionary. So the guys being in red jerseys, like Kenny Golladay, Shep, obviously, Kadarius Toney, it doesn't bother me they're not practicing in these things. What really, nothing has changed because those guys are injury-prone players. So obviously we'd like to see him out there, but Kenny Golladay was running routes in the red jersey. He looked fine. Toney is off the side. He's not running routes, but he did have a surgery according to Pat Leonard. Andrew Thomas, we know his deal. They're letting him play it. So I'm not worried about the fact that they're not practicing in these OTAs and mini camps, but there's injury-prone players on this team, and that's the worry. Regardless if they are practicing here or if they weren't.
Yeah, nothing's changed. The medical staff hasn't changed. I actually want to do a deep dive throughout these next 5-6 weeks, and I want to take a look and see if some past media guides are available where, almost every employee is listed. I want to say, how much has this medical staff changed year in and year out? Obviously the players haven't changed much. Obviously there's just new faces and, with the 11 draft picks, however many UDFAs. So there's going to be a lot of new players, but the major significant players, they haven't changed. So hurt players kind of stay hurt. And if you have the same medical staff that's doing the same thing, then odds are those players are going to stay hurt. So that definitely is a concern heading into this year, just because that's something that Joe Schoen has talked about that he wanted to change, and it may not change this year, which sucks.
Yeah, it's a wait and see point it's wait and see at this point with injuries.
It's wait and see, but if you're worried about that as a Giants fan, like if you're worried about the team's health, like obviously you can't do anything about it now. Like nobody can do anything about it, but it is a worry. June 9th, it is very okay to be worried about, are the Giants going to be a hurt team like they were last year? But then you also sit back and think, well, what happened in 2020 that we were one of the healthiest teams in the NFL? So it's a very frustrating thing to talk about because I don't know if anybody has an answer to it. If they did have an answer to it, they would solve it.
And that's the thing when it comes to injuries, is because everyone wants an answer. It's like, well, is it the turf on the field? Is it the training stuff? Sometimes it's just, like you said, 2020, they were one of the healthiest teams, and Joe Judge literally came out with numbers on that in training camp last year when he was getting criticized for his practices. He's like, look at last year. We were one of the healthiest teams in the year. We had guys coming back from injuries the quickest. And this past year, so I think it really comes down to, yes, training staffs have something to do with it, but it's how well does that individual player take care of his body. And there's freak accidents like Blake Martinez, who's never had an injury, who gets injured. And there's injury-prone players like Kenny Golladay, Adoree Jackson, Sterling Shepard, what looks like it'll be with Tony. There's guys who are just injury-prone. So it's frustrating, but it's one of those things that's like, I just don't know what to do about it. I just think it's just one of those things that happens.
I don't think there's anything you can do about it, like I said. But as a fan, very okay if you're worried about it. And I know it's June and this is the time for optimism, but very okay if that is something you are worried about.
Let's talk about another guy who's had some injury issues, who is out there practicing, and that's Saquon Barkley. All the reports are that he looks more explosive, and this was before he had his press conference on Wednesday, but it's like he looks kind of back to his normal self, like they're practicing on air, but you see a little more burst out of him. We've talked about how they're going to involve him in the receiving game. That's been a talking point. And Saquon came out and flat out admitted it. For a guy who doesn't give much to the media, Saquon said, he's like, I'm feeling confident again and kind of getting some of my swag back as a player, and he's like, he said he didn't have that last year, compared to earlier years in his career. And I think that's huge because Saquon Barkley, he wasn't as explosive in 2021 compared to his former self. And also he was hesitant at times. Now, part of that was the offensive line being so bad in front of him that he's never going to be like a Wayne Gallman type where it's just bam, bam, I'm getting downhill as fast as possible. But he did look hesitant. And I think Saquon's health is one of the biggest wild cards this year. Is what does Saquon get back to? Because you've talked about it. It's that second year off of that major injury that you really kind of get back to your former self. So that's going to be interesting to see. Not necessarily if Saquon could be healthy for all 17 games, but when he's out there on the field, does he look like 2018, 2019? Or does he still look more like last year where he was hesitant and didn't have the burst?
And just as much as we talk about the knee and the ankle or whatever health-wise, we also talk about the head and the mental aspect of the game too. And I think, especially as a running back, your mindset is a huge part of it. And I think Saquon Barkley is one of those players that he takes his mindset very seriously. And if his mindset's bad, he's going to be a bad football player. If his mindset's good and he's and he has that killer mentality, I think he would say Mamba mentality. If you have that, then he's going to feel a lot better. So I'm happy to hear that he is openly saying that, hey, these last 2 years, I have not been confident, but now I am feeling more confident. So the ability for him to actually reflect on that and say it, it's a good sign.
So yes, just can he get back to that self? Because last year was just a perfect storm of him not having the same burst coming off the injury, him not having the confidence in his knee, and then the offensive line having Nate Solder getting blown up, Billy Price and Matt Skura getting blown up, Will Hernandez getting shed, and Andrew Thomas wasn't as dominant as he was his rookie year in the run game. So Saquon really is the wild card this year, and forget about his future after this year, just as like on the field play, he really is the wild card on this team. I think what is Saquon Barkley? Is he able to average 4.85 yards a pop like he was his first 2 years in his career? Is he able to create touchdowns off of one play? Where last year he flat out couldn't. He was a bad running back last year.
Yep, I agree.
All right, and if you want to bet on Saquon Barkley's yards and over-unders, which will be an episode we do next month, slide into stacks of cash this baseball season with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. New customers can bet just $5 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets no matter what. Win or lose, looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during MLB season? With DraftKings same-game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, how many bases will be stolen, total runs, and more. It's your shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY. Bet just $5 and get $150 in free bets no matter what happens on the field. That's promo code JOHNBOY at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. MLB trademark used with permission. And here is Zack Rosenblatt of NJ.com. All right, we had the wrap-up minicamp with our good friend Zack Rosenblatt of NJ.com. Zach, what's going on? How's it feel being on the beat with the new coaching staff?
I'm on the beat with them. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it feels good. Yeah, I don't know.
Don't try and critique my my sentence,
sorry,
Mr. Journalist.
You want to win the Tony Award? That was very rude of me. But I don't know. It's this is my first time dealing with like a coaching change because I started covering the Giants in Judge's first year, whereas like the rest of the beat is kind of like used to the whole routine. So you try to, when a new coaching staff comes in, all of a sudden everybody loves everything about it. They do things differently. The energy's different, and so you try not to like read into that stuff too much because that's the same thing that everybody says when a new coaching staff comes in. I even think about like everybody's been like raving about Wink Martindale and all excited about him, and they're acting like Patrick Graham didn't exist the last 2 years where he was like, for a stretch, like the most popular guy in town. So, you try to like keep it measured in your approach, but it's been interesting. They definitely do things differently. I'm sure we're going to get into all of this. Like the way they do things on offense, I think is pretty clearly going to be, at least they're going to try more things and be more aggressive and, not try and avoid mistakes as opposed to, just trying to, letting Daniel Jones play loose, all that stuff. So there's a lot to be encouraged by, but it's obviously too early to really matter yet.
You mentioned Tony Award. Now, there have been some people that have done some public things to really vouch themselves for the Tony Award. Art Stapleton asked a question that I wanted to be asked, and then he quote tweeted said question, said, a fan wanted this question to be asked, and I want it to be known that I am a man of the people. Jordan Ronan publicly said that we're very, very fun and cool on his podcast. Is there anything that you're planning on being more of an advocate for the going for that Tony Award?
If I told you ahead of time, it wouldn't be that as good, but
okay.
Yeah. I got some stuff in my back pocket, yeah.
All right, right on.
We've truly created an award to get people to do things for us.
I still think I was robbed last time, but I'm not trying not to, bring that into my campaign this year.
Yeah. Well, there's you can set the precedent that if you think you've had an election stolen from you, just go at it again. That's not going to happen anytime in America anytime.
I would like a recount.
Anytime soon. All right, let's get into some New York Giants news. And I'm specifically talking about Bobby Skinner, Justin Panic 2020, if you're wondering. Justin's wearing one. There's a lot of guys wearing red shirts. Daboll kind of he seems to be getting kind of frustrated with some of the injury questions and whatnot, but do you think it's do these matter, or are they simply playing it safe, or is it what is your read on so many guys and prominent guys being in red jerseys throughout all OTAs and minicamp?
Yeah, I think it really is playing it safe. There are obviously some guys dealing with more serious ones like Sterling Shepard or Nick Gates, Matt Parrott. Some that are a little more you don't really know what's going on with them. Like Thibodeau, I get this sense that he should be okay for training camp, and a guy like Galladay, I don't even know what that injury is. But yeah, I get, I even heard with a couple players in particular that they, if they had to play a game this week, they would be fine. But the coaching staff was take it easy. We want to get you to training camp. Guys like Darnay Holmes, Aaron Robinson. I think Thibodeau is in that group. Galladay, maybe even Kadarius Toney, though I know he has a new injury, so it's hard to say with that one. But yeah, I think a lot of this is, I think they wanted a lot of this stretch was, installing the playbook, getting guys to learn the plays, getting to know everybody. When some of these, bubble roster guys and undrafted rookies maybe get some reps, and Daniel Jones get some reps with some new players and his new offensive line, like stuff like that. I think that was the main goal of the spring. I didn't think they wanted to force it. They didn't want to any guy that they feel like is for sure going to be playing for this team. I don't think they wanted to risk anything. So that's my sense. It's not like Daboll wasn't necessarily willing to admit that, but I do think they were taking it easy with a lot of these guys.
He definitely doesn't enjoy the injury questions. He said he was going to be vague, and the next day he said, I'm not going to answer that. And then he realized, like, maybe you shouldn't just flat out say I'm not going to answer that.
It's and kind of corrected awakening when the season comes around.
Like corrected himself on it. But it's been hard to decipher from the outside looking in because, you saw clips of Kenny Golladay yesterday and it's like, he looks fine. But then, Kadarius Toney, reportedly had some surgery a month ago or whatever it was. So I guess it's playing safe, but it's a lot of guys who have had injury issues that are in those red jerseys, which I guess makes sense.
And as more time goes by, like, I'm getting a little bit more concerned. And I know, you look at the context, and if there was a game next week, they would be able to play. And if you look at the guys that are on the side, it's like, well, Shep's coming off a major injury, Blake's coming off a major injury, Andrew Thomas is coming off ankle surgery. So if you look at it individually, it could be a cause for maybe to take that breath. But also, this is the same medical staff from what I know. I mean, you did bring back, Sterling Shepard, who is just naturally an injury-prone player. Kenny Golladay is still here. Kadarius Toney is still here. So the players that got hurt last year, relatively all of them are still here with that same medical staff, like I said. So, I mean, it's not really a question, but yeah.
Yeah, no. It's a good point because I wrote some final thoughts after practice was canceled today about just everything I saw and heard in the spring, and the thing I said in there about the injuries was I don't think the Giants really get the benefit of the doubt anymore when it comes to it's only the spring, because these are all guys, especially at receiver. I think that's the main spot where you're these guys need to get on the field. We saw last year, we were, everybody kept saying, once the season gets here, they'll get time together or whatever. We went most of training camp. Kadarius Toney didn't practice. Kenny Golladay missed half of it. Shepard was healthy, I believe. I mean, it's so long ago at this point, but but he already had played with Daniel Jones before, so that almost didn't even matter relative to the other guys. So these guys they didn't even get that many reps with them during the season, if you think about it. So, especially not together at the same time. So that's my main concern is the receiver situation. If there had been offensive linemen that had been out, I mean, Andrew Thomas, I don't think you worry about him getting healthy and all that stuff, but you don't worry about him not being in tune with everything. If other guys on the offensive line had been injured because they're a completely new group and they're trying to learn how to play with each other, and if Shane Lemieux's there, Andrew Thomas knows what he can do and stuff like that. So I'm not as worried there. But yeah, I think the receiver one concerns me. Those are guys that have been hurt their entire careers. That's their biggest question. They need all three of them this year if this offense is going to improve. As much criticism as some of those guys get for how they played last year and all that, they need these guys healthy and they need them playing. And if you want to get a real evaluation of Daniel Jones, you're going to be able to get it better with those guys than with Wan'Dale Robinson being your number one wide receiver, as promising as he might be.
So obviously 2 new coordinators, whole new coaching staff, everything like that outside of Thomas McGahee, but who cares about special teams? We don't. Not only offense, because obviously a lot's been written on the offense with the personal grouping frequency and the formations and stuff like that, but even on the defensive side of the ball too, where there was talk, I know this week, about the defense giving the offensive line fits and problems. So, what's your initial thoughts on Wink and, what they're bringing to practices from what you've seen in terms of the blitz rate, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think the way he structures the defense and the way he blitzes and the way he moves guys all over the field, even guys are going playing in spots that that would be surprising if you had said it before camp. Like Ellerson Smith kind of snaps at middle linebacker and on the inside, and I think it's more just to confuse the offense, and he'll rush from the middle as opposed to from the outside kind of thing. I did see him drop back in coverage at one point. You see Julian Love up in the box, Dane Belton up in the box, so I think especially for a team that's learning a new offense, I think the defense is probably going to have the upper hand with that kind of scheme, maybe even throughout training camp. So it's going to be hard to kind of discern because that they're throwing all these different looks at them, and they're not really going and knowing what Wink Martindale's going to do necessarily. Although I guess at certain points they will, where you do certain things just based on what you're doing in that drill and the team drill and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say, I think it's going to be very boom or bust with this defense would be my guess for the season. You know, they're going to be taking a lot of risks, a lot of blitzing. I think, as you guys know, the secondary is a big question mark for this team. A lot of young guys back there. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be very fun defense to watch. I think you're gonna see some guys maybe get highlighted more than they would have in like Patrick Graham's defense. But I also don't know how the talent level is, especially on the back end. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out.
And something that was even, that we're thinking about as the season approaches is Wink Martindale maybe going to take it easy on the blitz rate since he doesn't have those guys in the back end? And I guess at least, mandatory minicamp, that's not going to happen. So,
I think a big part of it is they've done a lot of packages where they have like 3 safeties out there, or they have like 5, like with the Ellerson Smith in the middle, or Jihad Ward rushing as like from the middle or whatever. Like so they're having like extra rushers on there, extra defensive backs. So I think that's why they're blitzing, where you're not seeing maybe as many traditional inside linebackers in there or traditional defensive linemen outside of Dexter and Leonard Williams.
All right. There's quite a dichotomy between a Joe Judge practice and a Brian Daboll practice, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's early, like, things can change. Obviously, if you remember, Judge didn't even get these practices in 2020,
right?
Which is kind of crazy to think about in retrospect, considering how many we just covered. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely looser. Like I know others have pointed this out. Like the biggest thing you notice, like the Joe Judge became known for the running laps thing, which really wasn't as big of a deal as it was made out to be, I feel like. But it got to a point where, like, if you made a mistake, like, these players are probably scared to make mistakes in practice, which, I think Daboll carries the approach of the opposite, where he wants these guys not to be afraid of making mistakes. So, when they make a mistake, they don't necessarily yank a guy out. I've seen some of the backup offensive linemen, if they got like a false start or something, maybe they sub them out. But generally, I didn't really see them punish guys for making mistakes. Maybe in the film room or something like that, it came up, stuff like that. But so I think that's the big thing. It's, he's listening to his players. And one big thing that we found out yesterday is that he's not going to be doing like a leadership council, which Joe Judge did, where, you pick out like however many leaders and you go to them to make a lot of the decisions about, if you're going to practice to stay, how hard you go. Daboll said he doesn't think, limiting it to just a few players is really fair to everybody else. He wants to like listen to everybody. Just because you're, a guy in your first year or a guy in your 10th year, like everybody should have an equal say in how everything's going. I think that's interesting. I mean, he's not the only coach to ever approach it that way, and there's certainly a lot of teams use leadership councils too. But that was something that caught my ear. That was definitely a difference from Joe Judge.
Yeah, and I remember there was a Cunningham Quincy Roche fight a couple weeks ago, and supposedly there was at least no external punishment for that.
And there were certainly no gassers like at that fight in training camp that went crazy with Logan Ryan and I'm blanking on Corey Clement. Yeah,
Corey Clement. Gosh, yeah, I couldn't remember who that was either.
And then from Corey Clement, Xavier McKinney. Yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah, nothing like that.
So I was actually watching Jihad Ward make Daniel Bellinger really uncomfortable on Instagram Live, and he mentioned something about maybe a fight happening this past Friday. So we'll see. I mentioned Bellinger.
I think that was the day we weren't there. So
yeah, it was on Friday. Yeah, he like asked somebody, was there a fight, and they said some O-line D-line thing, I guess.
Okay.
I didn't have this question written down, but since I brought him up, can we get excited about Daniel Bellinger? Because it seems like he's the first team tight end already.
I mean, I guess it depends on like what your expectations are for him. Like if you're expecting him to come out, and like, in terms of like win your fantasy league or something like that, like I wouldn't expect that. Like I don't know if he's going to put up huge numbers, but I think he pretty clearly is at least going to enter training camp as the starting tight end, I would say. Ricky Seals-Jones has been buried on the depth chart more than I expected. Daboll tried to play it off like it's not really that big of a deal, but it was pretty consistently that he wasn't running very many reps at the ones. So yeah, I think Bellinger, I think he brings the best combination of pass catching and blocking that they have. He's not going to be a down the field guy. I didn't really see them throw to him down the field like at all. I did see him line out on the outside during like 7-on-7s or something at one point. But he's not like as versatile as like Evan Ingram or whatever. Complete opposite player of Evan Ingram. But yeah, I'm encouraged by him. I think out of the rookies, if you beyond the obvious guys in the first round, I think he's probably the most likely to start in week 1, I would say.
Which, yeah, that's so I'm excited. So yes, the answer is yes. I can get excited because I want him to start week 1.
Yes, I guess, yeah.
I was just worried that you know how it is with coaching staff, especially with day 3 guys. They're can sometimes be a very hesitant to play them. Like
Yeah,
Julian.
I think that was one of the surprising things about Daboll and Wink, honestly, is that I think historically coaches don't like to give rookies, especially non-first round picks, like first team reps this early. Like they want them to earn it, kind of thing. And he was getting first team reps, and if Cordell Flott in the nickel, and you have Dame Belton getting some first team reps at safety, and I mean Wandale is more because of everybody being injured, but like I found that very interesting that they're giving these guys. I mean, because ultimately this team is going to be, by the end of the season, they're going to be playing all these guys a lot. And so you might as well get them ready now.
Yeah, in a way, I was almost going to ask, do they have a choice? Do they even have a choice of like you said, even though if they want to keep him down now, by the end of the season, somebody's going to get hurt. Multiple people are going to get hurt. Do they even have a choice on to just not play them now? Because this team generally is, you look up and down, it is pretty young, like up and down the board anyway. So,
I mean, by the time the 53-man roster is set, they probably will have more rookies and like free agents they sign this offseason, which I think is probably pretty rare where you have that many rookies and that few like free agents they brought in from the outside. So yeah, this is gonna be a very young team, and I think that that's a positive in a lot of ways because it means they're fully rebuilding, but there's gonna be some bumps in the road certainly.
Yeah, 11 draft picks. It's like 14 UDFAs.
I mean, I'd expect all 11 to make it, and a few of the UDFAs. It's hard to tell with UDFAs right now, just because the third team and second team guys don't get as many reps. But
yeah. Is there a UDFA that's kind of popped out at you in these?
I wrote down a couple names. I think Austin Allen got like a couple first team reps the other day. I don't think he necessarily did anything that I noticed, but I think that's notable. Zion Gilbert has made some plays against the backups.
I like that.
I haven't really noticed Yusuf Corker or Deshaun Corbin. Trying to think if there was anyone else. Not off the top of my head. I think those are the main guys, I would say.
You mentioned Deshaun. Who's the first back after Breida? Is it Brightwell or Antonio Williams?
I think it's been Antonio Williams and Gary Brightwell a little bit. I've noticed more than the other two guys, but again, it's hard with the third stringers and stuff like that. It's really hard to read anything right now. Once they actually get into the training camp, you'll be able to tell better.
Right. Going back to the Daboll Judge stuff, is there anything that since the day he was hired till now that you've learned from him from media sessions now that he's gotten a handful of them?
On Daboll, you said?
Yeah.
Anything I've learned from him that he's got?
Are you not looking forward to having to like that he's the head coach? Then you have to try and get quotes from him from this season and be honest.
I mean, when you phrase it that way, like, yeah, he doesn't give away much. Like he's not like he doesn't, especially if you like ask him about a specific player, like unless you phrase it in the right way, he doesn't really get in, especially if it's defensive players, which I mean is not that uncommon for like an offensive coach. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily surprised me. I think you could kind of get that vibe as we were talking to him in the early going and like owners meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. But the vibe around the practices is very loose, and you see him he bounces around all over the place, which Joe Judge did too. But it's a little different. Like he's not like I don't know. He's not like sticking his head into the position and like taking over maybe as much as Joe Judge would have. But the interesting, I still am curious to see how it plays out with like the play calling stuff. Like it seemed like Mike Kafka. I think Mike Kafka, when he spoke to us, said that he like calls the plays to the quarterbacks. I don't know if that means he's like calling the plays necessarily. So I am curious to see how that plays out. If Daboll has decided that yet, I think that's gonna be one of the more interesting like things once we get back here, how they approach that.
Yeah, they've tried to keep that under wraps of what they plan on doing, but right now it seems Kafka will call the plays, which is something I'd like.
Hopefully he keeps telling us when we ever really ask him that he's like, I'll let you guys know. So I hope he doesn't do the Joe Judge thing last year where he refused to tell us that it was Freddie Kitchens, even though you could like just watch the games and see that he was calling the plays from the sideline or whatever.
yeah, it's brutal.
So I'm hoping it's not like that level of secrecy from this regime, but we'll see.
Maybe I'm putting you on the spot here. They're going to have the training camp with the fans there, and we'll be there with the van, so you'll get to come hang out in the van, have a good time. We'll put a camera on you. Have you heard anything about the Fan Fest? This is my ask everybody question now.
I've not heard. Maybe I'll try and ask around about that. Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything about it. I'm very excited for the fans to get there. I haven't covered a Giants training camp yet with fans there, so.
I've never been to one either, so I'm excited to get there.
It really is.
I mean, last year kind of stunk, obviously, because I think they could have done it.
No, they could have.
But that'll make it even better this year when everybody's out there. I mean, it's a new regime, a lot to be excited about. I mean, this is going to be the sort of team that has a lot of guys that are like unknown and young. So there's going to be a lot of like training camp heroes or whatever. That I think my pick for that this year is Travis Toivonen, and I think he's the early favorite to be like the training camp guy.
We think so too. We've been we mentioned him the other day.
Either as many or more first team reps than Darius Slayton. So
he's a big wide receiver. He's wearing number 13.
He's a guy. Like interesting name that like you've never really heard before. Yeah, those are all the key elements.
He's got all the makings of a preseason superstar. Like people are off the sales army. There's still some people on there, but he got some playing time. Even though people do forget David Sills led the team in receiving versus Chicago in Week 17.
And people forget that he does have ties to the Bills coaching staff, like the Bills guys.
They tried to sneak him on the practice squad, and the Giants scooped him up.
They know him. Because you look at like Austin Prohl or Robert Foster, or they're guys that are probably technically competing with him, though those guys didn't really stand out. They had all those Bills ties, but so does Sills, so can't hurt.
Yeah,
I just got really excited. I just got really excited because we were talking about camp. Really excited to see how Kadarius Toney's going to interact with bleachers of fans screaming at him.
The Kadarius Toney show is going to be the thing that everybody's looking, at least in terms of media and like the diehards like you guys. I think everybody's just dying to see what he looks like, what he says when he eventually talks to us.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed.
It won't be much when he talks to us, but there's a lot has happened since the last time he spoke, obviously. So it's going to be I mean, that's the thing about him, man. He's like, I mean, his Instagram is always a journey. He's just a character. Like I've never covered a player like him. He always gives us something to talk about. Sometimes I wish we could just talk about the football stuff, but and he's just very talented. So like you hope it works out in that sense, because he in that Cowboys game and that Saints game, people always only bring up the Cowboys game. I thought he was awesome in the Saints game too. So,
yeah, he had 80 yards in that game.
He had that play where it was like 3rd and 17, and he caught it at the line of scrimmage and got a first down.
Insane.
And defenders between him and the first down marker. So you hope he's healthy, because I mean I've been on like fantasy football shows, like podcasts or radio shows this offseason, and they're always they go through each guy and they ask, and they're like, so who of these receivers do you trust the most? I don't know if I trust any of the receivers the most, but like Kadarius Toney's the one that like has such a high ceiling, obviously a low floor too, but it's such a high ceiling of what he can be that it's like, man, and especially if they move him around, like I think they're going to get him on the outside more, get him in the slide, get him in the backfield, like if he can stay healthy and in shape, and like he's just such an exciting player. So we'll see.
His only issue, not his only issue, but the main issue is staying healthy. If he's healthy, it's going to work out. All the other stuff will not be a big deal if he's healthy. Because you mentioned the Cowboys game. Remember the Rams game? He had 3 catches for 40 yards on the first 5 passing plays of the game. And like you mentioned, and one of those was on a 3rd and 12 on a speed out, which was like, if Kadarius Toney's not on the field, the Giants aren't converting that and getting down the field for a field goal.
I even heard from somebody associated with the Rams that were like, the coaching staff was like, they were kind of scared of Toney. That they were like, they obviously you don't want anybody getting hurt, but they weren't pissed that they didn't have to defend him that game. Yeah, he was coming off that stretch. That Cowboys game was the week before, right?
Yeah. Like he has that game-changing ability that really nobody else on the offense has. Saquon, if he's healthy, and I think that's something to keep an eye on is Saquon too, because anyways, I don't feel like doing the whole Saquon conversation, but I'm excited to see if he can be healthy and get back to his former self.
Yeah. I mean, Saquon and Toney being healthy, those are like 2 versatile, movable pieces that I don't know many teams have like 2 guys like that. So that it would at least be fun to watch.
Yeah, they're the 2 guys who add, from one play from your own 20 will add points to that drive.
And they're guys that can score anytime they touch the ball. I mean, even though Toney didn't technically score last year, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the? I won't put you in that position. Are you going to be the first person to bite the bullet and ask Kadarius Toney himself about the trade rumors this offseason?
I mean, there will be a lot of contenders to ask that question.
Yeah, Pat will ask it. Let him do it.
I mean, anybody, a lot of these guys. I think that's going to be very interesting. I think.
Do you want to be the first? Like, are you going to be up there? Not getting in his face.
No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like asking the first question because a lot of time people just kind of sit there waiting for somebody to ask the first one.
Go for it. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It just depends on the setting, and I don't know how training camp availability is going to work either. So, we'll see.
Yeah, Justin's just like, please make him hate you. Um,
I mean, yeah, I think that's not an issue already. So
we'll finish it up. What do you make of Josh Zudu practicing at offensive tackle?
yeah, that surprised me. Because they at first when Thomas was out, they were going Corey Cunningham. I thought maybe Matt Gano would have gotten some reps there, but it doesn't seem like they really view him as like a swing
Is
guy.
Gano in red?
I think I can't remember if he was. There's so many guys in red, I can't remember. But I think he was practicing with the second team at right tackle. Like, I don't think he missed any team reps.
Okay.
But yeah, it surprised me that they were giving Zudu as many reps at left tackle. He was, especially like the last week or two, he was almost exclusively at left tackle. So I did not see that coming. I thought he even had a chance to push for a week 1 starting gig at left guard. It seems like Shane Lemieux's pretty entrenched there. It's early. But yeah, that's surprising. That kind of tells me that they want to make Zudu like the swing backup at like every spot, side center maybe this season, which is interesting. And I think, hurts a guy like maybe a Gano or a Matt Parrott when he gets back, because if they're fighting for their roster life.
Garcia too. He's not a lock. Yeah.
Yeah, Garcia is another one that's kind of surprised me how they've used him. Like it felt like they were adding like 5 different guys they were going to beat at left guard, and now it just seems like they have their starter and their backup. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think a bunch of those veteran guys are more competing for like the backup center job and the backup guard job, which I didn't expect. Like we've seen Jameel Douglas, Max Garcia, and Ben Bredesen all getting center reps. You hope Feliciano doesn't get hurt. I'd say that, but yeah, I don't know. The offensive line, the depth is a concern, certainly. Like the backup offensive line has looked brutal. I think that's pretty normal for most teams anyway, but
Right.
I'd be concerned if any of the starting 5 gets hurt this season. So,
All right, Justin, you got anything else? All right, that's an interview.
you do that all the time now?
Just for you. We've entrenched that's just for you. Zach, where can people find your work? You do them in training camp, but your OTA, your mini camp, like practice wrap-ups they're must read every single day.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoy writing those, and I keep doing them because I do get good feedback on them, and I don't know, I like doing it. Even like a lot of times it's hard. You think there's not anything going on in like the light practices where they don't really do much, and then I come up with a bunch of stuff. You see a lot of stuff happening, so I do enjoy writing. But yeah, you can find me at Zack Blatt, ZACK on Twitter. Still be writing a lot of Giants stuff on our website, nj.com/Giants. Have a lot of stuff coming down the pike that I think's gonna be pretty fun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this off season and get into the van with you guys in July.
Yeah, we'll see you in the big black van at MetLife, or Quest Diagnostics or wherever. And so we'll see you then. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much to Zack Rosenblatt for coming on the show. We're going to hang out with him in the van, in a black van with a camera, looking in on the van in training camp. And before we get to Giant stories and talking about Bobby Skinner going to Coney Island, gentlemen, Father's Day is just around the corner. You know what, gentlemen and ladies, it's Father's Day. Get something nice for your father. If you're worried about his hygiene, Father's Day is just around the corner, and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure that all the father figures out there are looking like daddy material this June. Hello. Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature Lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. This right here is no dad joke. Treat him and yourself and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. Trust me, his dad bod will thank you. Manscaped is designed with fathers in mind and all men. And the Performance Package 4.0 is here just in time for your pops' special day. Of course, there is the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. There's a Weed Whacker ear, hair, and nose trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all his goodies. That is what is inside the Performance Package 4.0. Dads love their comfort. They just launched their boxer briefs 2.0. Make sure that you get them. It'll hold the family jewels in place. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code GIANTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And use code GIANTS. Shake what your mama gave you? Nah. Shake what your daddy gave you with Manscaped.
Word up. All right, Justin, thanks again for Zack Rosenblatt coming on. We got Giant stories. But first, I want to talk about this lemonade thing.
Oh, wow. Teasing Giant stories.
We just talked with Patreon and our boss Jake, I think this might happen. I don't know. Part of me is a little conflicted because it's like 4th of July is my favorite holiday, and I'm not going to get to spend it at the beach and with my family.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I know, and the continent is what I'd be doing it for. Like it's like I'm going to go there, make an asshole out of myself. I'm going to have a Talking Giants sticker on my forehead. So if John Boy Media is willing to do it, I'm a slave to the content. I will do it.
If you don't do it, you're going to be sitting 10 years from now at a random 4th of July celebration. I know you take it very seriously, but if you don't do it, you're going to be sitting 10 years from now saying, damn, I wish I would have done it.
It all depends on if John Boy Media is willing to bring me up there for it.
Which I think they will. And it sounds like Jake and his fiance are also super into it. So can you explain actually like what happened and why we're talking about this?
So Badlands Booker, who is like if you watch the hot dog contest, he does the rap at the beginning with the main guy. And I'm a hot dog contest like connoisseur. Like it's a big deal to me. And so he had an Instagram post he's like, hey, comment, whatever to enter a raffle to be in the lemonade chugging contest at the 4th of July hot dog contest on Coney Island. So I entered it and I kind of had like, hey, if I win it, maybe I'll go. I do want to eventually go to the hot dog contest one day. And
I think I got somebody. Who would be the lucky contestant? Eyes is closed. Oh, Bobby Skinner. You are in, my brother, okay? So, man, this is the field this year, Canadian Racing League.
All right. So you're in.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to make sure I get on TV. I'm going to there's going to be stickers everywhere. I think there's a chance that they're going to hate me at the end of it. Because I'm sure they don't want people going on there and like turning it into a sponsorship, but that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Fair. Lemonade drinking, lemonade chugging for 40 seconds?
Here's the thing. I watched it last year, and Badlands Booker won it in 40 seconds. He only faced one person. So he's going to win it, obviously. Like, there's no way I'm going to win it. But part of me would like to take second. So, like, out of all the other people, I could win out of them. That could be... But the other part of me wants to just, when he's done, just dump the lemonade on my head. Yeah, just make a spectacle of myself. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of options that can happen. But regardless, 2 years ago, we were joking about glizzies, the glizzy contest, and still our most viewed video.
It's part of our brand. We have to do it.
The most viewed video on Talking Giants Twitter history is from the hot dog contest. Like, that's just a fact. So, it's why I think it's gonna. If John Boy Media is willing to do it, we can do it. So
you go and watch film of like obviously college football players, and you just go watch film of like because you like schematic stuff. So sometimes you'll just watch film of guys like that. Just fun plays. What you have to do is you have to go back and watch film of other hot dog eating contests or lemonade chugging contests and see what things people do that's cool, and then maybe you have to like come up with your own stuff. I mean, it's a copycat league. That's what they say.
I mean, I did always win the chugging contests like at parties and stuff. Like I could always I always would win that. So I feel like I just got that natural athletic ability to get it done.
When we meet up and you get your iced teas or whatever from Dunkin', I'll look. You get it. 10 minutes later, it's gone.
Black coffee.
Like you get a large and it's gone. And I'm like, it's gonna run through you. You're like, I'll be all right.
They fill them with ice pretty heavy, so I have them.
It's still a lot.
I mean, my trash can is just every day full with water bottles. So, all right, let's get into Giant stories. Play the freaking music. The rookies, all of the rookies were at the Yankees game. They went, as is tradition. Andre Miller, tight end out of Maine / wide receiver, he was at the Rangers game, but he was up high. You know who wasn't? Julian Love, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Justin Ellis. So all the defensive tackles of Julian Love, all the way they were down low. Speaking of Coney Island and the hot dog contest, that's where Jeremiah Hall was this past weekend, hanging out at Coney Island. Davis Webb and Alex Bachman were at a Coldplay concert at MetLife. Hey, you know how I know you're gay? Sandra Platzimer went to a... Have you ever seen 40-Year-Old Virgin?
I don't know. I have, but...
Yeah, so it's a 40-year-old... Sandra Platzimer
It's June, you can't say that.
Yes, you can say that. Sandro Platzgummer was at a Rangers party. So he didn't even get to go in the game. Kayvon Thibodeau went to a Liberty game, and all the Giants had a barbecue, and I saw Dexter Lawrence was playing Giant Jenga.
Oh, man. I really wanted to talk about Jihad Ward, but he didn't. Does he post on Instagram at all?
He had an Instagram live, and he was just making Daniel Bellinger the most. He kept on being like, "We need to get you a sister. We need to get like," for like 20 minutes was just putting the camera in Daniel Bellinger's face, like asking him if he wanted to have sex with one of the women in the live chat.
That's
like,
not fair.
Yeah, but Bellinger was very clearly uncomfortable. He should have just said like, "Hey man, get that fucking camera out of my face." Like that's all he had to do. But Bellinger's just like, oh, like it is what it is. It's a 4 or 5 year vet and a rookie. I get it, but
I want to talk about Jihad Ward. I know this is not a Giants story thing, but I want to talk about Jihad Ward being the leader of the edge rusher room.
It sounds good in mini camp and stuff, but again, will Jihad Ward be good enough to get 20% of the reps?
He's gonna push Kayvon Thibodeau.
I do think there's something to that, but it's just, again, Jihad Ward's got to be a good player too.
Yeah. Are Leonard Williams, Justin Ellis, and who else bad teammates for not
Dexter Lawrence
not welcoming? Who was sitting up high in the Ranger game?
Andre Miller. He's a UDFA on the other side of the ball out of Maine.
Are they bad teammates for not?
It's not on them to give them those tickets are like $600. It's not on them to get him tickets down there.
They probably didn't even know that he was going to the game.
Yeah, honestly, like I 90% sure he didn't know that they didn't know that he was going. So
I would have felt left out.
We're recording this before Game 5. Would assume if the Rangers win tonight and Daboll's there, I'm finally in on like Daboll actually is their good luck charm and it's not lucky. Because the Lightning are a really good team. You know, they won the first 2 games at home and then Lightning came back, so we'll see. Anything else, Justin, before we close out for summer break?
No.
Even though we'll be back two times a week. By the way, not this upcoming week, but the week after is our way too early draft week.
Oh, excited for that. I get to talk about somebody that I went to high school with. That is, he's going to be a defensive player from my favorite school, Notre Dame. So get excited for that. I already have. How many players do we do total on each side of the ball?
I think we'll do 10 to 12.
Oh my gosh.
Grump will be on with us too.
Oh, Grump. Okay, then is that less players that I have to look at then?
Well, we're all going to look at all of them. We'll just have conversations about them.
All right. Well, no, I'll let you and Grump really do the brunt work, and I'll make sure that I know my players that I volunteer for. Yeah, PTSD from draft season. It's a lot of work, but we are excited for the early preview. I'm also excited for the over/under episode. What other episode themes do we have coming up?
We may have a couple interviews. We have the way too early 4th of July mailbag vacation.
Oh, we may
week.
have an exciting interview.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. All right, Justin, that's it. Again, it was a fun OTA minicamp session. So we got a lot coming up. I wrote this down. Our good friend, Pest the Analyst, lost his mother. So, Pest, we're thinking of you. You're one of our favorite people. I love shit talking you. But we love
bread
you.
with Pest.
Yeah, so Pest, hopefully we get to see you down at training camp or Fan Fest again. Pest is definitely one of those people that just brings the energy at all times. So.
Genuinely good dude. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're feeling the pain with you, Pest. We appreciate and love you, and we love and appreciate all the listeners. So we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Not exactly sure what the episode is going to be, but we'll see you on Tuesday. Until then, let's go Big Blue.